Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of the Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Inner Banks fishing report with Captain Richard Andrews of Tar-Pam Guide Service. How you doing, Richard?
I'm doing well, Marvin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to it. We were talking before we started recording, and I guess, the most recent news in your neck of the woods is the tropical storm stuff's kind of boogered up the fish in the last few days, but things are going to start moving in the right direction pretty soon, right?
Yeah, we've had a fairly mild June so far with temperatures mostly in the 70s and 80s, which is really nice. I don't like those 90-degree temps a whole lot, but we had this tropical system move through, which has had us sidelined for a couple days, just mainly for excessive wind. But when it's passing now, and we'll be back to normal here very shortly in the next day or two.
Got it. And so when something like that passes through, obviously I'm sure it churns the water up, but how long does it take for things to kind of get back to normal?
It doesn't take long. I mean, after a major hurricane, it can, but this is nothing. It was just a big kind of a moderate blow. It was blowing 25 to 30 for a couple of days. We get those all the time here.
Got it. And so, I think the last time we spoke, the stripers are still up in the lower Roanoke. Have they kind of run out now, and are they in the Sound for the summer?
There's still some stragglers up there, believe it or not. Yeah, if you wanted to go up there and do that, that's an option. But we haven't done it in a while, in a couple of weeks, but we have been focused mainly on our speckled trout and our redfish in the Pamlico, and that's been going real well.
Gotcha. And how have you been targeting those guys?
Well, we've been, using conventional gear to find them, and if I have fly clients, we'll switch over to fly rods pretty quickly. Catching a lot of the reds in really shallow water, like less than 2 feet. So bait fish patterns are working best still. We have started seeing a little shrimp activity. We have a crop of brown shrimp that come out of our creeks, usually start in the late June, early July time frame. And we started seeing a few of those, and so that's going to really drive the fish crazy here in the next few weeks as they start migrating out of the creeks and into the river and kind of out toward the Sound. But yeah, the bait fish patterns on light sink tips, intermediate line, and in some cases even some floating line, because sometimes in the morning we'll see those red pushing bait. They'll be chasing bait or very actively feeding in the early morning hours. So that's been fun. These reds are anywhere typically from 18 up to about 28 inches. So they're a lot of fun on a fly rod. Yeah,
there you go. And how about your trout bite?
The trout's been good. We've been catching some nice ones. Fish up a lot of 20 to 25 inches this year. And we haven't had a trout kill in a long, long time here. And so the fish have just grown and grown and grown over the past 4 years or so. And we probably had the largest class of trout we've had in quite some time, which is very nice. A lot of fun. Gotcha.
And are they're on bait fish patterns too?
Yeah, so far. Yep, same thing. Mostly more sink tips with those. We're not getting them to hit top water as much as the reds, but you can catch them on a sink tip on any kind of a bait fish pattern. The articulating flies work great. Clousers work great. We might start fishing some shrimp patterns here shortly, but not quite yet.
Got it. And what is the difference kind of between the redfish and the trout that make the trout want to basically eat deeper?
Well, our trout in this area generally like deeper water. The reds can be found in the same places that the trout are found. Like you pull it to a point or a bank that's got 4.5, 5 feet of water on it. That's where you mostly find your trout. But you might be fishing a trout spot and also catch reds mixed in with the trout. But most of the time we're up on what I call the flats. We've got a lot of sand flats along the river shorelines here, and you're in less than 3 feet of water on a sandy bottom. And that's mostly just redfish territory there. The trout generally are not found in places like that. They're out deeper, 5 to 7 foot water, 4 to 6 foot water, those types of places.
Gotcha. So like we were talking about last time, they're kind of like 2 or 3 tabletops out.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. They prefer just a slightly deeper water typically. I mean, I've caught trout in 1.5 foot of water before, so there's always exceptions to everything. But we're talking, more common patterns here.
Got it. And we've got a question for you, and it's an interesting one. Got a guy on Instagram, and he's got kind of a non-name handle, so we'll just say the guy on Instagram. And he wanted to get your thoughts on fishing, popper fly combos.
It's certainly something you can do. It's not something we do a lot of, but just like it's a very effective technique for brim fishing with a fly rod. You know, throwing an ant pattern or a spider pattern below, or even a nymph. I call them a nymph below a brim-sized popping bug. That's something that a lot of folks do. You can certainly do it as well for bigger flies, for saltwater species. You can get a bigger saltwater popper or a crease fly and tie to the shank of the hook, just like you would tie into a dry fly when you're trout fishing, and put a dropper on it. I would go with a dropper that's somewhat lighter, like a smaller clouser, maybe with a smaller bead head, or even some kind of any kind of bait fish pattern that doesn't have too much weight, too much bulk. Because throwing a popper on a fly rod in the wind is hard enough, and then when you add more weight to the back of it, that's even more. So you probably have to upsize your fly rod at least by one weight, maybe two weights. So whereas you might be using a 7 weight normally or 8 weight, you might have to go to a 9 or 10 for that kind of setup. But it's certainly possible, and it could probably be very effective.
Got it. But it sounds like you better be eating your Wheaties and be ready to ice your arm down if you're going to throw that thing all day long.
Well, and also you run the risk of catching 2 big fish on the same rod, which is, I mean, it's always, you could have worse problems, but, you know, if you hook 2 25-inch stripers or a couple of 25-inch redfish on their fly rod, then you're kind of in a pickle.
Yeah, there you go. It's a first world problem, though, Richard.
Well, we like this kind of problem.
There you go. Well, you know, folks, we love questions at the Articulate Fly. You can email them to us or shoot them to us on our Facebook or Instagram page. If we use your question, I'll send you some Articulate Fly swag, and we will enter you in a drawing for a half-day charter with Richard at the end of the season. And before I let you hop, Richard, why don't you let folks know where they can find you so they can learn more about Tar-Pam Guide Service and maybe book you?
Well, the best source of information on what I do is my website at www.tarpamguide.com. Everything that I do and offer is on my website. And if you have any questions whatsoever, just feel free to call or email. My contact information can be found there.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, look, folks, you owe it to yourself when this weather passes through to get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Richard.
See you, Marvin.